So if you don't know, this is comedian Sam Hyde. He's the co-creator of the 2016 sketch comedy show $1 Million Extreme. As it turns out, he's also a RISD grad, Rhode Island School of Design. Some of my good friends have graduated from there as well. But Sam really blew up social media this week because he had some very choice words for Elon Musk. I believe he posted this video on X the last day or second to last day in December, where he took Musk to task for his advocacy of the H-1B visa program. We talked about this on Monday's video. A number of the MAGA faithful, like Steve Bannon, have accused Musk of attempting to basically sabotage and sell out the MAGA movement for his own financial benefit, which in this case includes importing cheap labor from abroad. However, while everyone was generally wrapped up with debating the merits and the demerits of the H-1B program, the differences and distinctions it had from other visa programs and the like, here comes Sam Hyde's video. And Sam, over the course of 45 minutes, delivered a passionate and profound soliloquy that captured the imagination of millions on social media in a way that no one else came close to in this again, heated discussion. And I wanted to highlight for you some of what he said that garnered the most attention and, most importantly, why it garnered so much attention.
People are not interchangeable economic units. If they're not more than that, then that's just an extension of antinatalism. That's just nihilism. That's just people don't matter. Neil deGrasse Tyson, the universe doesn't care shit. The universe cares. That's why we're here. It's understandable why a computer guy, why an engineer would think that or would want to think that, because it would make solving problems so much easier. We have hardwired group preferences, we have genetic memory, we have culture. This is not learned stuff. It's so deeply embedded in us that it carries on for thousands of years. Thinking of people as interchangeable units, while it would be useful in a simulation or in an economic theorem, it strips them of their humanity. And by the way, it's one of the first steps towards any authoritarian dictatorship type system. It's one of the first steps towards Marxism, is thinking of people as just labor. It's a very gross, anti-human thing to think.
Now, what you just heard there was something that's actually been discussed quite literally all over the world right now, particularly as globalism is being increasingly replaced with a rising civilizationalist world, which will develop through the course of this video. One of the key differences between globalism and civilizationalism is what's known as disembedding. This is a key term in globalist scholarship. What globalist processes do is they disembed, that is, they dislodge political and economic decision-making away from the local and instead centralize and collectivize that decision-making into the hands of very, very few, a managerial class that make political and economic decisions completely irrespective of diverse cultural and civilizational norms. This is perhaps the single most unique aspect of a globalist system. Globalism is comprised of a one-size-fits-all political and economic set of protocols that are technologically and telecommunicatively imposed on all populations all across the planet, regardless of their cultural uniqueness or specificity. And because of this disembedding dynamic, the cultures of diverse populations are inevitably ravaged. They're basically destroyed. And they're replaced with consumer-based lifestyle values that are couched behind the veneer of human rights. And so that's why all modern education today is dedicated to forging the student into what's called a global citizen, right? You take a look at any public school mission statement or vision statement. We are here to make global citizens, meaning they're there to turn these kids into workers who are interchangeable anywhere in the world where globalist systems dominate. And what Sam is saying here is that such a vision, such a globalist vision, isn't just tyrannical, and it's not just wrong. It's actually radically dehumanizing. And it's dehumanizing because humans are, by definition, cultural beings. This has long been recognized by cultural anthropologists over the last century. I mean, human beings are characterized fundamentally by language, right? This is what makes us unique in the mammalian world, as it were. Our unique linguistic capacity. And language is inescapably cultural. And we are inescapably shaped by our technologies, by the way we organize time and space, which is itself inextricably linked to our geographies. I used to teach a course, a music and world cultures class at Eastern University, and one of the most fascinating parts of the class was showing the students how diverse music traditions from all over the world are all radically influenced by their unique ecologies. In other words, their instruments, for example, are specific to the ecological materials available to each culture. So when you go into a museum, music museum, a cultural music museum, and you see all the different instruments around you, you're actually, in many ways, visiting different parts of the world because those instruments are simply transformed materials that are specific to their ecologies. We are all innately cultural beings, and to marginalize culture as merely artificial, as globalists do, to denigrate it as mere window dressing, is to denigrate the human person, which, of course, is precisely what globalist ideologies of the 20th century are most patently guilty of. And so Sam is taking Elon and Vivek and others to task for not foregrounding the unconditional importance of culture in the life of a nation and in the life of a people.
Hey, why isn't China importing infinity Indians right now? If it's such a huge economic advantage, why isn't China doing it? We need to do a naval blockade of China to make sure they don't get any of these amazing Indians. Every Indian that makes his way into China is a threat because China will use their genius to get one over on us. That's the biggest threat this country's facing right now. I think we need to go nuclear. I think we need to say, if China imports enough Indians, it's like diamonds. It's like nanotechnology. Indians are like nanotechnology. We have to be willing to use nuclear weapons to keep China from getting these precious Indians. That's step one. Sounds retarded, right? Because it is. It's retarded. It's subtarded. Ever hear of a subtard? By the way, Moist Critical coined that term, subtard. Competing with China in what sense? GDP? Making a number go up? Having software companies that are valued more highly? Competing with China in what sense? And at what cost? If the cost is making America look like Calcutta, that's not worth it. That's not a price that we're willing to pay.
Now, what's so interesting there is that by foregrounding China, and by the way, Sam is very critical of China, but I think Sam may not have even recognized that he is foregrounding the rise of what scholars call a civilization state, of which China is perhaps the single best example. I mean, we've talked about this concept a lot on this channel. In fact, I argued that Trump wanting to acquire Greenland, right, and bring back the Panama Canal under our control, the way he talks about those projects is very much akin to this notion of a civilization state, which China is leading the way with. Civilization states are, in effect, worlds within the world. So these are nations that are redrawing their boundaries around ancient civilizational spheres, such as the basic organizing principle for the whole of society is culture rather than politics. Culture is the core of society, not politics, not economics. So linked to a civilization, now the state has the paramount task of protecting a specific cultural tradition. That's the purpose of government, ultimately. And in each case, the goal is not world revolution or imperial world conquest, but rather civilization states are staking out a particular sphere of civilizational self-containment, a full unification of a people's unique history, culture, and spiritual space. So Sam is right. China believes that its position in the world is best secured by securing its own civilizational flourishing. And ironically, that includes economic flourishing. That includes technological flourishing. That includes telecommunicative flourishing, flourishing in science, in math, in industry. All of this comes first and foremost out of their cultural flourishing. Civilization states incorporate what globalists, to their own demise, end up separating. Gang, we all know that in moments of emergency, you don't have time to hesitate. Whether you're deep in the wild hunting or living off grid, you need to be prepared for anything life throws your way. The wellness company's Field Emergency Kit offers the most robust personal urgent care, giving you the edge when seconds count. Packed in an IP67 military-grade waterproof and dust-proof case, this kit isn't just built tough, it's built to save lives. Inside, you'll find life-saving antibiotics, antivirals, antiparasitic, non-addictive pain relief, and even a generic EpiPen for critical allergic reactions. With over 60 conditions covered, this kit stands ready when medical help is miles away or simply not an option. And each kit includes an 85-page medical guide written by the wellness company's medical board, guiding you step by step to handle emergencies with confidence. It's designed for adventurers, survivalists, and anyone who refuses to leave their safety to chance. Gear up with the Field Emergency Kit today, because when the unexpected happens, you won't just survive, you'll conquer it. Click the link below and use code Turley to save up to $180. Click on that link below right now.
The idea that these tech guys want to bring in exceptional people is just not true. They're looking to hire basically slaves who can't leave their company without leaving the country, who will work for 50%. That's the other thing. They keep saying they'll work 80 hours a week, which is bullshit. Nobody works 80 hours a week. They work 20 hours a week of actual work, and the rest of the time is spent around on the phone and showing the boss that they're working 80 hours a week, sitting in the office. They're not actually working 80 hours a week. And furthermore, why should anybody have to work 80 hours a week? Why is this a race to create slaves? Why is that a good thing? Why is that a humane thing? Why is that good for humanity? How is it possible, if you're a Democrat or a Republican, if you're left or right, why is it a good thing to want slaves? They'll work 100 hours a week. They'll work in their sleep. They'll work 200 hours a week. They'll work infinity. They'll have no lives. That's not a good thing. If you want more hours out of somebody, you have to pay them more. It's just money. They'll do it for $20,000. That's what they're saying. They're pretending like they're complimenting their diligence and their work ethic. What they're really saying is we can hire them for cheaper. That's what that means. 80 hours a week or pay them $100,000 more a year. It's the same thing. They're just saying you can pay these people $150,000 instead of $400,000 or $80,000 instead of $250,000. It's just money.
Now, what Sam is getting at there is precisely what so many have exposed as the real motivation behind H-1B visas. With all of the hyper-idealized talk, in the end, H-1B visas are for cheap labor. Let's just be blunt. The H-1B visa program has become nothing. It's become nothing more than a billionaire scam to import cheap labor at the expense of the American worker. But what's so key here is that the H-1B visa program has actually been exploited and abused precisely because it's all part of what's known as a global division of labor that's inherent in globalist structures. And this is where manufacturing and factory jobs are shipped out to third world nations, all the while capital and finance are relocated to metropolitan urban centers, leaving rural populations highly unemployed. But the whole point of that system is to maximize the bottom line for corporations by keeping their costs inordinately low. So is it any wonder that CEO salaries have exploded as much as they have in the last several decades? So if you don't know, in the United States back in 1965, the CEOs of major companies were paid around 20 times as much as their average employee. That was back in 1965, about 20x their average employee. By 2012, they were paid more than 350 times more than their employee. So employees' wages are flat, all the while CEOs' wages are through the roof. And they're largely flat because the whole point of globalism is to keep costs inordinately low. So if that requires you to ship manufacturing overseas, great. If that requires you to import overseas talent who will work for less, great. This ultimately has nothing to do with the United States being founded on an idea. The United States is for everyone. Yeah. But in the end, that ideology is being used to justify bringing in cheap labor and defending globalist and enacting globalist economic policies. Ironically, that is the bottom line.
You to go full Steve Bannon here. You're a tech bro, we get it, immigrant. But if you are on Team America, and by Team America, I don't mean Ben Shapiro's collection of ideas. America's not a collection of ideas. America is a people, Americans. If you are Team America, then the most prominent talking points need to be the immediate deportation of illegals and the end of the abuse of the American worker by programs like this H-1B, the gamification of stuff like this that's set up to benefit people who aren't us.
And that's it. When all's said and done, I mean, that's it. That's exactly what I think we all want in the end. Number one, the immediate deportation of all illegal immigrants who have come into our nation or who are staying in our nation unlawfully, who've stayed beyond their visas. And two, the end of the exploitation of the American worker, the abuse of the H-1B visas for the sole purpose of bypassing American workers in order to hire cheap labor. That's the bottom line. We want a day when both our borders and our workers are equally protected. And I can honestly say, with the kind of passionate and profound words from Sam Hyde, I have no doubt that day is indeed at hand.